She had everything: money, power, a future scripted by fortune. But her heart? It wanted something no billionaire could buy. The airport was packed, but no one mattered more than her. Hanah Adewale, daughter of the richest man in the region, had returned from the U.S. Master's degree in one hand and expectations in the other. Paparazzi lights flashed as she stepped into a black bulletproof SUV. Her father smiled beside her, already calling her future CEO. But Hanah's eyes weren't on the red carpet. They were searching beyond it. Outside the tinted glass, a group of workers carried bricks under the heat. And just for a moment, the heiress forgot everything, except one face. She didn't know his name, but his hands told a story. Covered in dust, shaped by hardship, yet steady, beautifully steady. As her car rolled past the construction site, time slowed. A young man, shirt soaked in sweat, smile calm like a river. He turned briefly, wiping his brow, and their eyes met. It lasted a second, but it rewrote everything Hanah thought she wanted. "Turn around," she whispered, but the driver didn't hear. And just like that, the girl born to lead empires fell into a war of the heart. He didn't have wealth. He didn't have status. But the moment she saw his smile, her world began to shift. The sun scorched the earth, but Elliot worked like it was worship. Each brick he lifted held the rhythm of quiet dignity. He whistled softly, stacking stone after stone, unaware of watching eyes. His skin glistened with sweat, muscles lean from honest labor. Unlike others, he didn't chase wealth, he built foundations. Hanah returned to the same spot the next morning, in disguise. Baseball cap, sunglasses, driver dismissed, just her and curiosity. She stood by the fence, heart pounding, as he looked up and smiled. It wasn't a smile of seduction. It was human, the kind that said, "I see you," without saying a word. He approached slowly, sensing no threat, just a woman watching. "Are you lost?" he asked, voice warm like morning rain. Hanah laughed nervously. "No. Just curious." Elliot shrugged, then offered her water from a cracked flask. She hesitated, then drank. In that moment, titles disappeared. And beneath the dust and concrete, something fragile began to grow. When a billionaire father has plans for your future, love isn't part of the menu. The Adewale dining table was long enough to seat 20. But that night, only 3 sat in tense silence. Silverware clinked. Servants stood at attention. The air was tight. Mr. Adewale folded his napkin with surgical precision. "I spoke with Senator Ogunleye," he said. "His son just returned from London." Hanah's heart skipped. She already knew where this was going. "He's ambitious. Clean record. He's interested in courting you." She raised her eyes slowly, her voice calm. "I'm not interested in being bought." Her mother flinched, but said nothing, just stared into her wine glass. Her father laughed, but it was sharp, cold, hollow. "This isn't about feelings, Hanah. It's about legacy." Hanah pushed her plate away. "Then maybe I don't want your legacy." Silence exploded across the table like thunder. "Watch your tone," her father warned, voice low and deadly. But Hanah stood, heart racing. "Maybe for once you should listen to mine." And with that, she walked away, not just from dinner, but from the world they built for her. Sometimes the safest place isn't behind gates. It's beside someone who's never owned a key. Hanah waited by the construction site again, no disguise this time. Elliot spotted her first, confused, but his eyes lit up. "You came back," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. She nodded, smiling. "I needed fresh air, and real people." He chuckled. "Well, you picked the right place for dust and sweat." They talked about music, childhood, and dreams neither could afford. No bodyguards. No gold watches. Just 2 souls meeting at eye level. For the first time in weeks, Hanah breathed without pressure. But back at the mansion, cameras had caught her visits. Her father watched the footage in silence, jaw tight. "Find out who he is," he ordered his assistant. No mistakes. I want everything: family, debts, history. Across town, Elliot hummed as he packed up for the day. He didn't know the storm that had just been whispered into motion. He didn't know he had been marked. And he certainly didn't know he'd just stepped into a billionaire's crosshairs. What happens when a man with nothing to hide is investigated by someone with everything to lose? The report landed on Mr. Adewale's desk before sunset. Elliot Daramola, age 29, lives in a rented room behind a mechanic's shop. Father deceased. Mother, vegetable trader in the local market. No criminal record. No scandal. Just poverty and quiet resilience. He's clean, the assistant said hesitantly. Too clean. Mr. Adewale frowned. Then find the dirt. Everyone has something. But there was no dirt. Only dust from the bricks he laid each day. And a character no wealth could buy, which made him dangerous. Back at the site, Elliot felt it. The shift. The stares. Someone had asked questions about him, and not kind ones. A man in a tinted car had watched him for hours. Even his boss began acting strange, whispering near his locker. Hanah noticed it too. Something's wrong, she said as they walked. I've seen this before. Power doesn't ask, it invades. Elliot looked her in the eyes. Is your world always like this? She nodded slowly. And you're the only part of it that feels real. They didn't threaten him, not yet. First, they tested his price. Elliot was summoned. Not to court, not to prison, but to a hotel. A strange man in a gray suit waited in a private lounge. I work for someone very powerful, the man began without smiling. You've caught the attention of people who don't like surprises. Elliot folded his arms. Then tell your people I'm not a magician. A briefcase landed on the table, thick, zipped, heavy with silence. Take this, the man said, and stay away from Miss Hanah Adewale. No threats. No harm. Just disappear. Elliot stared at the case, then at the man. He saw the fear in his politeness, the violence hiding behind money. I'm not for sale, Elliot said quietly, standing to leave. But the man's tone shifted darker. Everyone is. Just depends on the buyer. Back at the mansion, Hanah sat on the balcony, restless. She didn't know a price had just been placed on their story. She didn't know the war had changed form, from silence to strategy. And far from her world, a bricklayer just refused to be bought. When love threatens power, even silence becomes a weapon. Elliot arrived at the construction site to find his locker emptied. His name was no longer on the payroll. No warning. No reason. The foreman wouldn't meet his eyes. Orders from above, he muttered. Across the street, a black SUV waited, its engine running quiet. Elliot didn't need answers. The message was already clear. Back at home, he found his landlord pacing nervously. Sorry, Elliot. I was told to evict you. You have 1 week. For the first time, Elliot understood the weight of invisible power. He walked miles in silence, fists clenched, heart burning. By the time he reached Hanah's gate, it was already dark. The guard stepped forward, unsure. He looked too angry, too broken. But Hanah appeared barefoot in a robe and ran to him. What happened? She asked, gripping his hands. They're trying to erase me, he whispered, voice cracking. She pulled him into a hug, defiant, unafraid. Then we'll rewrite the story. Behind them, a camera blinked red. Watching, recording, betraying. Before Hanah's father built an empire, her mother gave up everything to love him. And now, history was repeating itself. Hanah's mother sat in silence, watching the footage. Her daughter, in the arms of a bricklayer. The memory stung. She remembered her own parents' rejection, the shame, the warnings. I loved your father when he had nothing, she whispered to herself. But love cost me everything, and I'm still paying the price. Later that night, she slipped into Hanah's room, eyes soft. Do you love him? She asked, voice barely above a breath. Hanah didn't hesitate. Yes. With all I am. Her mother sat beside her, sighing like a woman with ghosts. Then prepare to lose things you never thought you'd sacrifice. Hanah blinked. Are you saying I shouldn't choose him? No, her mother said. I'm saying know what it'll cost you. Power doesn't leave without blood. And this family bled in silence. But now, a daughter stood ready to break the cycle. Will you help me? Hanah asked. Her mother nodded slowly. I couldn't save myself, but I might help save you. When a billionaire wants to end a story, he doesn't fight in private. He humiliates in public. The ballroom was filled with Lagos elite, cameras, chandeliers, and champagne. It was Hanah's official welcome back gala, hosted by her father himself. She wore gold. She smiled, but her eyes searched the crowd for Elliot. He wasn't there. He wasn't invited. And something felt staged. Midway through the speeches, Mr. Adewale took the microphone. Tonight, I reintroduce my daughter, not just to you, but to her future. A tall man stepped forward. Senator Ogunlai's son, flawless and smug. Meet her fiancé, her father announced. The cameras flashed. The applause thundered. But Hanah stood frozen, betrayed. She hadn't agreed to this. She hadn't even been asked. She stepped back. I'm not marrying this man, she declared aloud. Gasps rippled through the hall like waves crashing on scandal. Then perhaps you're marrying the bricklayer hiding behind my name, her father sneered. He nodded to the screens. Photos appeared. Elliot and Hanah. Intimate. Vulnerable. Private moments, now public. A deliberate invasion. Her voice cracked. You had me followed? Her father's eyes were cold. I built this family. I'll control how it ends. When power can't buy silence, it erases the noise. Elliot didn't see the men coming. 2 unmarked cars. 4 men in black. No words, just violence. They dragged him from his rented room. Phone smashed, wrists bruised. He wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged. He was removed. Miles outside the city, they dumped him by an abandoned road. No police. No calls. No Hanah, one growled. If you love her, disappear. Or we'll make you disappear for good. And just like that, Elliot vanished from her life. Hanah searched everywhere, calls unanswered, messages bouncing. No one had seen him. No one would speak. She confronted her father, eyes wild with grief. He sipped his tea calmly. He left. Cowards often do. But you don't understand, she wept. He's not like you. No, her father said coldly. He's worse. He's poor. She collapsed into her mother's arms, shaking. And that night, she made a vow. If Elliot was gone, then so was she. Some daughters inherit wealth. Others inherit war. Hanah chose to fight. She walked into the boardroom like a woman with nothing left to lose. Executives stood as she entered. She didn't greet them. She didn't smile. I'm resigning from Adewale Group, she said, sliding a sealed letter across the table. Her father looked up, calmly amused. Where will you go? Poverty. She stared at him. I'll go where peace lives. You wouldn't understand. He stood, voice low but thunderous. You think you can disgrace me publicly? She didn't flinch. I think you already did that when you sold my heart for headlines. And with that, she walked out, leaving a name behind, but reclaiming her soul. That evening, the news broke. Billionaire's daughter quits empire amidst scandal. Speculation flooded social media. Was she pregnant? Depressed? Mentally unstable? Her mother watched from the staircase, silent but proud. Power wasn't only in money. It was in truth. And Hanah was finally telling hers. She sold her car, emptied her accounts, and moved into a 1-bedroom flat. No driver. No chef. No guards. Just space to breathe and grieve. But deep inside her, a fire had been lit. And its first flame whispered, "Find Elliot. Restore the story." They tried to bury him. But bricks are for building. Elliot spent weeks off the grid, bruised but breathing. A local pastor had found him and taken him in, no questions asked. At night, he laid bricks for the church's extension. By day, he taught young boys how to measure, mix, and mold. The pain became purpose. The loss became fuel. But one day, the pastor approached him gently. "There's someone you need to meet. She's starting a new community project." Elliot hesitated, until he heard the name, Hanah. She had started a foundation, Rebuild Africa, a project for ex-convicts and street kids. She didn't wear designer clothes anymore. She wore hope like armor. The press called it a publicity stunt, but her hands were in the mud. She mixed cement. She carried sand. She built. And when Elliot saw her from across the site, everything stopped. She looked up, dust on her face, eyes wide. They didn't run to each other. They walked, slow, stunned, changed. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. He smiled softly. "You found me in the only place I was ever whole, building." Sometimes love doesn't need a mansion. Just two broken hearts choosing to heal. They sat on a concrete block, side by side, silent but safe. The foundation site buzzed behind them, yet their world was still. Elliot reached for her hand, and she let him. No apologies. Just presence. "I wasn't afraid of your father," he said. "I was afraid you'd choose him over me." "I almost did," she whispered. "Until I saw who I became when I lost you." There were no violins. No epic speeches. Just two hearts catching their breath. He touched her cheek, rough hands meeting soft skin. "I missed your fire." She smiled. It never left. It just needed something worth burning for. Later that week, they launched the Brick by Brick initiative, a skills hub for youths. Hanah trained young women in architecture. Elliot trained the boys in bricklaying. Word spread, this wasn't charity. It was legacy without the luxury. Former employees of Adewale Group sent quiet donations. Some even volunteered. For the first time, Hanah felt rich without her father's money. But peace is loud and enemies listen. A call was made to a news outlet. And once again, the war returned. If power can't control the truth, it will destroy the people telling it. The headline dropped at 6:47 a.m. Billionaire's daughter caught embezzling donor funds from Street Youth Project. Photos. Fake bank slips. Edited videos. The story spread like wildfire. Hanah was summoned to court. Sponsors withdrew. The hub was sealed overnight. Elliot ran to her. "We can prove it's a lie." But she sat calm, her fingers trembling only slightly. They don't want the truth. They want the silence. Her father denied involvement. Publicly. But privately, his fingerprints were on every leak. "Let her bleed," he said. "She'll come crawling back." They always do. But Hanah didn't crawl. She called a press conference. Alone. No lawyers. No rehearsed script. Just pain and proof. "I gave up wealth to gain purpose," she said. And this is how power responds. She dropped evidence on live television, timeline charts, hacked footage logs, forged emails. Adewale Group's head of PR resigned 2 hours later. Anonymous whistleblowers confirmed everything. By nightfall, the story had flipped. Hanah wasn't the villain, she was the phoenix. Elliot watched from behind the crowd, proud and silent. Because when a woman like Hanah speaks her truth, kingdoms tremble. Some fathers build empires. Others build enemies. But a daughter in love builds revolutions. Mr. Adewale sat in his penthouse office, watching the empire tremble. The board had called an emergency vote. His name, once untouchable, was now questioned. He blamed Hanah. He blamed the bricklayer. He blamed love. But behind the headlines, another blow was rising. Hanah's legal team filed a civil suit. Defamation. Harassment. Abuse of influence. For the first time, the king had to kneel to the law. And it wasn't about revenge, it was about reckoning. "If I lose," her lawyer warned, "she walks with her head higher than your towers." Meanwhile, Elliot returned to his village, silent and pensive. He'd received an offer. A multinational wanted to fund his building model. But he couldn't say yes without asking the most important question first. He walked barefoot to the same clay house he once built for his mother. And under the stars, he whispered, "I'm about to offer her everything I am. Is it enough?" His mother's voice echoed in his heart. Bricks are weak alone, but when bonded, they carry kingdoms. And that night, Elliot began to build one final thing, a promise made of stone. She gave up a mansion for love. He built her a home with his hands. Months later, the people gathered, not in a cathedral, but on a foundation site. There were no velvet chairs, no imported roses, just wooden benches and wildflowers. Hanah walked down an aisle of stone, past brick walls Elliot built by hand. She wore no tiara, just a headwrap her mother had once worn in struggle. Elliot stood waiting in a simple white shirt, dust on his sleeves, fire in his eyes. "I have nothing gold to give you," he whispered, "but I offer you forever." "And I accept," she said, "because you gave me more than love, you gave me me." In the crowd, cameras rolled, but none of them mattered. What mattered was that her father showed up and stood at the back. He didn't speak. He didn't interrupt. He just watched and wept. Later, he left quietly, but not before dropping a note in her hand. "You didn't break the family. You rebuilt it. I'm sorry." She tucked the note into her dress. No bitterness, just peace. And as the couple danced under bare bulbs and stars, Elliot whispered in her ear, "This time the story ends with us. Not your father. Not the world. Just us."